the missing and made up 1000 years. Is it possible that actually it's more than 1000 years and all of history before the 1600s are made up? Let's investigate. First of all, I received this lead from Jaden Slayer YouTube. He asked me to look at coins from so-called 1600s. I followed his link for Münzen 1650 and I found a couple of interesting coins here. It obviously says I here, as you can see, i659, again i650, i690, now this one is again i650, i582, i673, i579, i650, i324, i650, i689, and the list goes on and on. If you haven't watched my previous video about the made up 1000 years, I highly recommend you watch that first because that will give you an insight. In summary though, it basically means that by I they added 1000 years to what we know as the current date. So currently we write 2019, but in fact it is just 1019 because I was representing back then Iesos, which is the Greek for Jesus, and so when they wrote the I letter before a date, that means after Iesos or after Jesus 682. Not to mention that the counting of the year is from this fake Jesus character that never ever lived. Although I don't follow the Bible anymore, I wanted to show you Revelation 20 because I think it is very interesting. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. He laid hold of the dragon, that serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1000 years. There we go, the 1000 years. What if they were actually using this script, you know, as kind of like a master plan, and this 1000 years is kind of like, you know, linking back to what we found as the missing 1000 years, the made of 1000 years. Well, you know, talking about Jesus, Iesos, in Greek, that could be quite related if we are talking about the Bible. And this is from the New Testament, which was written in Greek, where everywhere we see Iesos and it is not Jesus. It is simply an anglicization. And he cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal on him so that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1000 years were finished. But after these things he must be released for a little while. And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was committed to them. Then I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for their witness to Jesus, which is Iesos here, it was anglicized again, and for the word of God, who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received his mark on their foreheads or on their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ, which means the anointed, by the way, for 1000 years. But the rest of the dead did not live again until the 1000 years were finished. What a story. But anyway, I think I can see the link here. 1000 years said like 4 or 5 times, and the made up 1000 years in history. I also received this lead from another subscriber of mine called Toxic Lucidity, and he created an Ancestry profile and did what was necessary, a saliva test, and it came back with this following result. And this is really mind-boggling because the timeline extends only as early as the 1800s. So what is before the 1800s? You know what I mean? Like, why is it that they can't find anything before the 1800s? Here's the next screenshot, and they point out that he is Native American 14%, and highlighted is Colombia. Again, 1800s is the earliest period. Now here's the Iberian Peninsula, and in this one there is absolutely no timeline. South Europe, again no timeline. Native American altogether, no timeline. Scandinavia, no timeline. Ireland, Scotland, Wales, no timeline. Great Britain, no timeline. Middle East, no timeline. Caucasus, no timeline whatsoever. And when we zoom into Colombia, we can see that it only dates back to the 1800s, nothing earlier. So my hypothesis based on this is that we are the new settlers after the reset. And the reset was about 1800s. and there is nothing before, or there were previous resets, we don't know. Then I also received this comment from Dusan the Pilgrim, and he says here at the bottom, when I did personal genealogic research of my family, the very last year I get was 1812. Even scientists say that for a laik it's impossible to search earlier than 19th century, and only specialists can do research more deep into the past. Strange, isn't it? Well, I think it is very, very strange. So this sparked my interest to search for other ancestry timelines. And what I found is that there was nothing before the 1700s. So here is one, the earliest is 1700s. Let's look at the next one, no timeline, 1700s. 1700s, as you can see here, 1800s, 1700s, 1700s again, and the list goes on and on. So we can see that there was nothing before the 1700s. So we are going back. First it was just the 1800s, now the 1700s. Well, let's see what we can find further on. So I wanted to find out what is the earliest and oldest gravestone and graveyard we can find. I came across Miles Standish Burial Ground. The Miles Standish Burial Ground, also known as the Old Burying Ground or Standish Cemetery in Duxbury, Massachusetts, is, according to the American Cemetery Association, the oldest maintained cemetery in the United States. And it has approximately 130 graves. Like, they couldn't find it. Like, what is this number? They cannot count it? Oh, it even has a website, Standish Burial Ground. Let's check this out. Doesn't want to work, does it? So on this image from this same graveyard, we can see that this gravestone is dated 1679. So that's about how far we can go in America, it seems. Then I found this article, which is about the Miles Standish Burying Grounds. So here's the entry to the graveyard, and it says, America's oldest maintained cemetery. Miles Standish Burying Ground is the oldest maintained cemetery in the United States. This sacred ground has been cared for by the town of Duxbury, Massachusetts, and takes its name from Miles Standish, military leader of the Plymouth colony, who was interred here in October of 1656. Then here's another picture of some more gravestones, 1777, and here 1742. This one is 1779, and this one I can't really read it. Here is another view of the cemetery. So interestingly, they say here that this graveyard got the name from Miles Standish. I couldn't find Miles Standish gravestone, which is said to be dated 1656. So far the earliest in this graveyard was 1679, it seems. Then I also found this website, Find a Grave, and here they show a gravestone from Rev Ephraim, who apparently died in 1644. And here is the gravestone. We can see the writing 1644, but I see that this is an I. Can you see that? And again, this is another picture. We can see that it is I644. So to me, this is the oldest so far, which was confirmed. Then I also found this article saying, is this the oldest known tombstone in the United States? This one seems to be 1695 or 1625. I think this is probably two, so I would say this is the oldest tombstone I found so far, 1625. Then I found this article, West Linton Graveyard, and here is a tombstone from 1667. This is from the UK. And then I found this Flickr group, Graves, Tombs and Cemeteries, which is very interesting that there is such a group. I mean, I'm not really into cemeteries or death or anything like that. It's just really for the research purposes. But it seems like some people are really keen on this. And this discussion thread is about what's the oldest grave you photographed. So this one is 1696. Let's look at that. Yes, I696. The next one is 1716, 1896, 1692, 1685, 1889, and they say that this one dates to 1616. I'm not sure where we can see the date, but that's what they say. Well, we could say we believe it or not, I'm not sure. 1816, 1689, 1655, J693. You can see the J coming into play now. 1689, 1661, and I'm at the end of the discussion. So do you see my point? My point is, did people not have gravestones before 1625? Certainly they died, but what happened with them? They didn't have stone, they didn't have carving skills. Clearly we have architectures like the Tartarian buildings, the pyramids, megaliths. So they had the stone, they had the technology, but where are these people? Where are their dead bodies? So here's a challenge for you. Go to your local cemetery and find the oldest tombstone. I would really like to find out what's going on here, and I think we will not find anything older than 1625. And that would be a proof that we are only 394 years old civilization after the reset. I guess the previous people were buried underground and underground level, buried under the mud floods. That's why archaeologists find old human bones underground. But on this layer of earth above ground, it seems like we are only 394 years old civilization after the last reset. I would like everyone who watches this video to prove me wrong and find in their own cemetery the oldest gravestone that they can find. Let me know in the comments below the oldest gravestone that you find in your local cemetery. And if you find anything interesting or older than 1625, please send me an email via my website. And I guess that's it for me, guys, for today. Take care in the cemetery. Have a good one.